Hi, I'm Mike, and this is NFGeeks. Well, there's been some interesting developments in the pod wars with Podware that at first I was just going to sort of either ignore or just wait until some other future time to deal with because it was going on this week, and this week is the end of the semester, so I was grading papers and doing my stuff. Some of you are probably experiencing the end of the semester, the academic college semester. But other things came up with it that happened that I felt warranted to me make this video, and that is to join my voice to a chorus of criticism of Podlayer that at first I didn't know was actually happening or wasn't aware of it. But there's been some other channels that have put out videos critical of Podlayer. Interpersonality made one called Dismantling Podlayer, and another video by a young man called, and this is his channel, Billion Personalities, also put out one, and that made me sort of encouraged because for a long time I felt I was like that World War II story you always hear about some Russian soldier in a bombed out building, in the snow, just, by himself, shooting, a whole platoon of Germans trying to overtake him. And so that warranted, I felt, to join my perspective with them, okay? Now, the Dismantling Pod Layer, done by this guy named Peter, and it's very humorous, so I definitely think you should check it out. It's a featured video on NFGeeks. He is asking for a consensus, or at least a referendum on Pod Layer from everyone's into typology. So what he is requesting is that people go on their videos, the Pod Layer videos, and if you don't like them, don't, press the don't like button. I mean, if you do like them, press the like. But, vote. To have people vote. And the same thing. Go on his video, and if you think he has a point about this, like it. Whatever. And I want to promote that because I think a referendum is necessary, and I agree with that position. Okay? Now, what brought this about is that Podlayer is having this game, and this is important to talk about, where they sent this email, kind of a condescending email, at least to me, inviting me to this game. And the game essentially is just looking at a bunch of videos and trying to type them. Type the person in the video. Sometimes they're famous people like the Vlog Brothers, sometimes just other people. But they want people to go around and type as many people as possible, I guess, with the Myers-Briggs typology, and they have done it or are going to do it too, and they're going to make some kind of comparison or whatever. Now, I am not participating in this at all. That's one of the official positions, and that's because this is horseshit. Okay? This is a trap. This isn't a real game like where there's referees and rules or anything like that. This is like, I think about it two ways. This is like a casino with casino odds where all the odds are favored to the house, but they sort of project this this image of fairness and almost randomness that anybody can win, but that's not the case in gambling. The house always wins. All the odds are aimed toward the house, and that's the same thing here. Okay, this is a trap, and when I say trap, when in terms of game, this is like Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, there's some gaming thing going on here, in the sense that when you're setting up the world or whatever, that there's traps. There's things that are meant to trip up the the players from the game master, and that's what they're actually doing. There is no chance that this is set up in a fair way that would knock them down because they are so honestly arrogant about this idea, this theory, and how it connects to their identity so much that they would never set it up in a fair way. Of course not. So this is an attempt actually to tilt something in their favor, to publicly demean those who are into typology, to make asses out of us, intimidate us, all that kind of thing. It's really just an attempt to show how smart they are, how better they are, and how stupid we are. That's actually what the purpose of this game is. So I'm not taking that bait, and I'm not doing it, and I don't care what they have to say about it, okay? Now, the purpose here is the perspective I want to give and add to the chorus is I want to, talk from an NF perspective and talk about what's going on with them. I'm not terribly interested in the theoretical part of it. I mean, I find it interesting, looking at physiology. I try to do some of that. But really what is important to me is, what is behind this? What is the motivation of this group and why are they doing this? Not exactly how they are doing this. Now, I guess I have to talk about theory a little bit. In the comments, I wrote a bunch of stuff about logical positivism and quantitative methodology because I have a background in that, unfortunately. on what real research and what real science looks like, but that's too long and long-winded. Again, I have other things I want to say that are more important. But I guess my main issue with them is that I sense no validity in their final reading once they read somebody. They probably have reliability, you can see that, meaning that the way they're doing it is consistent and brings out consistent results. You know what I mean? They're consistently seeing the same physiological features and directions and all that. But their conclusion about what the personality is and what that means for a person, I find no validity in. Validity meaning, does the tool measure, what it's supposed to be measuring, as opposed to, is it measuring the same way each time? That's reliability. I think they might have that, but I don't sense any validity at all. And this is from my own inductive, subjective experience of them. And that has to do with the videos, the carpet bombing they did NFGeeks. I received 11 for everybody that's been on NFGeeks, and I've watched all of them by now. And none of these videos, as long-winded as they are, captures the person they're analyzing. Okay, I did not feel that these things represented the person, and that's my main criticism theoretically. Okay, they have these long sort of analyses, but I don't feel the person was captured. It's almost astrology like, where some things hit, some things don't. It's all sort of a metaphysical thing going on with this, and I didn't feel that I could see the person in any of these, as opposed to Myers-Briggs. When I read a profile about somebody, the typological profile, and look at the person, it's almost identical to the point where I get goosebumps, and other people do. This is particularly true about Noah in both sides. I saw Noah's first. I did not see Noah in the analysis at all. Okay, this is my son. On the other hand, when I read ISTJ, my God, it nails him. Okay, and SJ nails him totally. So I don't sense any validity, okay, in this at all. An example of the other side, to kind of give an example where there is validity, to see how this could have worked if they had behaved differently, is the relationship between MBTI, Enneagram, and Socionics, okay? And that is that there is sort of a mutual connection going on where you can take the other two and create a synthesis within typology that can go along with MBTI. I would put MBTI in the middle, sort of, young as the roots. If we're talking about a tree, symbolically, it's NF. So symbolically, young as the roots, and the trunk or a big branch is MBTI, and then there are these other branches that are running sort of in the same direction, going in the same direction off the same tree. And that means there's sort of a cluster going on that you can use. Let's take the Enneagram, for example. I think the Enneagram and MBTI are talking about the exact same things. I do prefer the MBTI because I feel it's a little more precise, but I definitely see crossover, absolutely. When the Enneagram people talk about fours, and I look at INFP, INFJ, yeah, there's some kind of connection there. I'm a 2, by the way, I know that. I don't know my wings. I don't know how to do this exactly, but I know I'm a 2. And so when you look at their descriptions, you can put it with MBTI, and that's why I never give anybody any crap when they say, like, well, I'm an INFP 4. Okay, I get what they're saying, and that's fine. I think there's a contribution that two are making. These things can mesh together. Okay, and again, it has that synthesis. Okay, the Myers-Briggs is the main theory. Here's Enneagram with their own thing. The two can fit together without there being any kind of destruction of either theory. Okay, Myers-Briggs stays the same. Enneagram stays the same. They both come together. Now, I would say that the same thing is true about Socionics, even though the Socionics people almost lean into the Podler stuff, like, no, we're the usurpers and all that. I don't think that's true. This is the world according to Mike. But actually, what I'm about to say is a compliment to Socionics, which is that I feel that it comes from the same source and runs in a parallel direction where you can do the same thing, have a synthesis. And this is, I wish, what Podler was doing even more so, because Socionics is bringing something new to the whole typology thing without trying to destroy Myers-Briggs or whatever. There's a crossover. Okay, so the crossover is that I find that if people take their inventory, they usually come out the same type. Some people say that they don't, but that's been on the internet. Everybody that I've ever had go to Socionics come out exactly the same. So I'm an ENFP, MBTI. I take the Socionics. I'm an ENFP. Okay, I read the ENFP profile. For the most part, it runs very parallel to the MBTI profiles, and it seems like they're saying the same thing. But what I like about Socionics is every profile, because of the way they're doing this, something new is added. So there's something about ENFP that is only implied in MBTI, or is something brand new, but at the same time seems absolutely right. And they do this in the pros and cons of these things. There's a pros and cons sort of thing that they have going on, and there's new stuff, but it seems absolutely right. It connects right away, and I like that about Socionics. They're bringing something new. Same model, same connection, parallel direction, but they're bringing something new to it, and then you can take the Enneagram and MBTI and Socionics and put it all together in a synthesis. That's particularly true about the relationship thing they got going on at Socionics. At first it seemed batty. How could this be right? But I've actually run into relationships that have the connections that they say between the functions, and pretty much comes out the way they say it is, even the negative ones. So they're on to something, and they're bringing something to that conversation, one sort of system. That is not what Podlair is doing, and I wish they were, because I think the observations of the physiology would absolutely add something the way these other two things have added something. But that's not what they're doing at all. They're at war. That's why I call it the Pod Wars. And they want to not just usurp, they want to destroy MBTI. And I think there's reason for that. And, they're not doing this, even though they sort of have this system that's almost identical. They have the functions, and they're basically just using weird words for intuitiveness and feeling, thinking, whatever. They have 16 types, more or less. I mean, they're, it runs totally parallel. It's like a kid who's mad at his parents. He wants the parents' attention, but then he's rejecting the parents in rebellion, but he really wants to be like the parents. It's like a dysfunctional kid. And I think that's relevant, okay? Because this thing about the theoretical stuff, that's not really my criticism. That's how I feel about it, but that's not what I wanted to communicate in this video. What I want to communicate in this video is what I think the real truth is, and this is coming from an NF perspective. I'm interested in what's behind this, okay? Not so much what is, the theory behind, what is the theory? Where is this theory coming from? Who are these people? And, this is particularly useful in my talents as an ENFP, and that's why I want to take my perspective and add it to these other things, as opposed to just saying the same things over and over again. So, and I've said this in the comments, and again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, and that's why this is probably going to be my last final statement on Podlair, unless something new gets jogged out in a conversation, an interview, talking about Podlair. Somebody wants to talk about Podlair, and something comes out of my head. Brand new. This is probably my final statement. So here's what I think is going on with them. And I've said this before, okay? This is not true inquiry at all. These are basically a bunch of immature people, a bunch of immature, selfish, narcissistic like people who are operating in an overcompensating manner. Basically, they want to be seen as the truth bearers. That's what this is really about. We're special. We're better than everybody else. Okay, we got the better idea, and look at us, aren't we better than all of you? And they're overcompensating with a huge sense of grandiosity, okay, which is leading to what all overcompensators do, bully and intimidate to feel superior, due to actually on the inside feeling quite inferior. With some kind of self-loathing and personal worthlessness that they are interpreting, or at least have internalized. And because they have this major inferiority about themselves, about whatever dysfunctions they have, they've projected that into this overcompensation where they want to be the special people. They want to be apostolic wannabes. Okay, really, that they are special, they are elite, they are the special group, there's an us in them, and that's why Podlair is an ideology. That's what ideologies do. Ideologies create a special group of people who are within the ideology, and everyone else is sort of outside of it and not worthy. Okay, they have enemies and all that, and that's what's going on. And also, because this is a total sort of dysfunction, okay, between inferior feelings and overcompensating and bulliness, and to be seen as the best, the strongest, the smartest, this elite group whom everybody is going to bow down to at some point, it is really just, it shows that they have not, addressed any of these underlying issues in any true transformational, appropriate therapeutic manner, okay? There's been no actual growth because they're not actually growing through this grouping. Okay. In fact, I had this idea that came from the objectivism argument that I had to give up on because I had to get to my dissertation. But I have an NT theory, another thing for the NTs to chew on, and I call it. You're gonna love this. I made this just for the NTs. I call it insulating egosyntonic paradigms. Right? That's Baudelaire is a much better example of this than objectivism. And what I mean by that, a paradigm is like that is an ideology that traps a person within their own dysfunctions and within their own deficits. Okay, so it's a self-contained closed system that basically gets people to be egosyntonic. What I mean by that is people who think that their negative parts of themselves that are dysfunctional are actually good parts, strengths, and that their personal self and consciousness is okay with all these negative attributes because the theory they've encapsulated themselves in is telling them that no, these are really good things, okay, when really they're bad mental health things. All right. One narrative in all ideologies is that, and you see this in movies, that no, we're not actually crazy. We're the people with the truth, and we're not mentally ill. And you'll see, and they sort of, teach everybody a big lesson. But that's in the movies. The reality is when you're acting sort of crazy and elitist and grandiose, and people say you're mentally ill, more often than not, you are actually mentally ill. That's the reality of it. Okay. And what I mean by insulating is that because it's closed, it keeps people trapped within their own dysfunction, and it keeps them trapped in this ideology that says your dysfunction and your mental illness is actually a good thing. Okay, and that's what Baudelaire has done to these people. And part of this is to be a sort of a quasi-cult that gives a false sense of specialness, that gives a false sense of we are the special people and you are the not so special. Okay. And that's why it's also over the top. It's this very defense mechanistic, attempt to sort of push down the negativity and the bad stuff that's within them and overcompensate into this much larger, over bloated sense of we are special, we are the best. And that's where the bullying comes in, okay? And trying to insult people and trying to take people down. This dismantling is such a horrible thing to do to people, okay? And it's important because, what I see is the dysfunction, as an NF, the various dysfunctions that are actually connected to the Myers-Briggs types and not necessarily in any kind of other system. So, again, you want evidence of MBTI, go to the comments left by Baudelaire people or go to their videos and you're going to see dysfunctions that are specific to the Myers-Briggs types. So let's take, for example, Edemus. And I realized Peter was calling him Adam Mouse and, trying to mock him, and people kind of give him crap about this, but the devil hates being mocked, and so I realized his point. But I want to go deeper as an NF. And the truth of the matter is, your name is not Edemus, your name is John. That's who you really are. And this whole Edemus thing, I mean, what are you, a 7th level, necromancer? And maybe you'll make it to the 8th one and get more mana and, potions. Truthfully, your name is John. And you've said that you were an INTP, and I agree because you have all of the negative, dysfunctional INTP attributes. And again, take a look at the way he operates in terms of the videos. Okay, so first of all, what are there? There's the INTP rants of very negative, cynical sarcasm. Sarcasm is very INTP. INTPs love to be continuously argumentative. They never want this argument to end. They love the sparring. They just want to, either win or just, beat somebody, browbeat somebody. A total insensitivity to other people's not understanding and, and needs of explanation. I mean, INTPs are notorious for that. They speak in the language that they know it in, and if you can't speak their language, well, you're just an idiot. Okay, they never try to translate it down so you can understand that. That is very obvious in John's approach. A total dismissal of ideas that is inconsistent with their logic, their internal logic. Okay, it's again, think of that insulating that I'm talking about. And this one, I mean, is obvious. Very INTP dysfunction, total failure to understand, their negative impact on others. Okay? I mean, he's completely missing how miserable he's making anybody in this. Okay? Now, even worse position, and this has to be seen in the videos, is, unfortunately, the center of this, and this is why it's dysfunctional, and that has to do with Tom and whatever dysfunctions he's doing. His dysfunction is actually working against this theory that he came up with, okay? And it's INTJ dysfunctions, okay? I mean, I don't know if it fits with Nyy'zai or Nyy'zai or whatever, but it certainly fits totally with NT dysfunction, okay? And what is that? Okay, this rigid defining of information that's been warped by idiosyncrasies, okay? That's for sure. Single-minded pursuit of all this, regardless, all right? Dissociative aloofness that cannot actually communicate the processing in spite of like excessive explanation. Okay, that's very INTJ. All right. A total intolerance of not having an immediate understanding of all this. All right. Not looking at anything outside his own theorizing. Okay, completely insulated. That's very INTJ. Like the INTP, no realization of the negative impact this is having on individuals and the true impact. And again, this relates to the games. INTJs are notorious for engaging in these intellectual games of quibbling, okay, just to make someone look like an ass or something. And it's always over these abstractions that the other person finds little meaning in or relevance to, and that's sort of used against them. Okay, so these are the dysfunctions that you can see, and there's others. If you look at the others, and that's very difficult, and really, it really indicates real mental health issues here. All right, and the comments all over the place. I mean, you guys are like, the stray neighborhood dog that shits on everybody's lawn. Okay, that's it's really awful, and all these responses just grows and grows and grows the opinion of severe mental health problems that are here. Okay, and again, this has to do with the grandiosity that comes out of overcompensating for whatever inferior feelings that is going on within your own consciousness. Okay, and feelings of low self-worth and whatever inferiority that drives this, and that creates and is sustained by the insulating ego-satanic paradigm, which says that that's okay because you're special and everything. All right, and it's a mirage of self-worth, really, because it's just burying more and more feelings of loathsomeness. Okay, and keep in mind, loathsomeness is its own form of narcissism, because when you self-loathe, self-hate, feel inferior, it's all about the self. Your self-loathing, your self-worthlessness, that then translates into this frustrated, passive-aggressive misery that's coming out, okay, to build up this grandiose position that's actually coming from a much lesser position of inferiority. And that's why it's not about the theory, it's all about you and how special you are and how you're the vanguard of a new truth and all that. Okay, because that's what this is always about when a group acts like that, and that's usually cults. Okay, look at any cult; they act like that. So what is really the final position I want to take, and that is the real position of NFGeeks. And so what do I think is going on is what you guys are actually cyberbullies. That's what you actually are. You're trying to bully everybody into acknowledging your strength, your power, because that's what bullies do. They want, a bully doesn't want you to see their weakness, and so that's why they attack all the time. And that's why they, hurt people. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to bully everybody in typology. It's interesting that it's Myers-Briggs because there's something specific in that target. And I wonder how that sort of created the inferiority complex that's running through this. Okay, I don't know if it's because of you went to the Myers-Briggs Foundation, they told you were nuts, or they didn't listen to you on Personality Cafe, or what this is about. But it's interesting that it's a specific attack, because specific attacks always have meaning when there's this overcompensating thing going on in bullying. Okay. And so, I'm not here to convince my own greatness and doing this in my own greatness, but what I want to do, along with the other videos, and is inspire everybody to stand up to this cyberbullying, because that's how you what you have to do with a bully. You have to stand up to them. And to be honest, I'd rather take a punch to the face here on YouTube and be made an ass of, or even like have to shut down my channel because something whacked out happens, than to, you know, put up with being bullied and put up with everyone else being bullied. Okay? Because that's what's actually going. And really, it's just pointing out your weak, mentally ill, pathetic attempts at trying to be grandiose and make yourself more than what you are. Okay, and that's what's actually going on. And that is my official stance, and that's what I've been saying the whole time in the comments, and I don't have much more to say then on this. This is probably my final statement. You know, but I want to end on a positive thing, because I thought about this, and I don't know, it may be hard to do this, you know, but it does relate to the idea of what's happened recently, you know, that dark times have been thrust upon us this year during Christmas, and has left us in a deep melancholy, like, you know, it's like a wet blanket of melancholy that's upon us. That, I have to say, though, also speaks to your insensitivity and your inappropriateness, that you would do this thing not only before Christmas, okay, but, you know, and over Christmas, but during the most miserable Christmas that I've ever experienced within the whole nation, that you would do this. Like, this couldn't wait till January, you know, and that's because you had to do it right away. You had to sort of do it because your egos were bruised, all right, to do this. And that also shows on your part, I hate to say it, a misreading, okay, ironically, because you misread everybody in terms of how they were going to react to this. And you misread me, okay? If you had looked at ENFP, you could have guessed my reactions and what's really going on. So, for example, in the email you sent, you talk to me, you know, you say Mike and your minions. And if you knew ENFP, you'd realize that ENFPs don't have minions. We have a fan club. That's what ENFPs have, okay? We have fans, not minions, okay? So really a big misread going on here. But still, okay, I know, I want to end on the positive, is that this is such a really difficult Christmas for everybody, okay, that it warrants to act in the Christmas spirit in a way that is difficult even for me because of my disdain for the bullying that's going on here. But ultimately, that's why it has to be done. You know, it's easy to be nice to people you like. It's easy to give when you have a lot to give, you know, and it's easy to give time when you have time. You know, the true meaning of Christmas is to, you know, give when you don't have a lot to give. To, you know, do something in the spirit of Christmas when you don't like the person. Give time when you don't have the time. That's the actual spirit of Christmas. So I'll admit this is hard for me, but I do think it's the right thing to say. So in spite of all this, I do wish everyone, and everyone at Podlair, in spite of my criticisms just now, to have a very Merry Christmas, and with goodwill over this holiday season. And, you know, my hope is that some of this goodwill will touch us all in some deeper way, so that all of us, including me, are better toward one another than we were before. And so that is my Christmas hope, in spite of how I feel about all this. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for watching. I know this was long, much longer than the average NFGeeks video. And I'm sure there'll be lots of comments about all this, as usual. But the situation warrants it. So, but nevertheless, I do wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and that includes everyone at Podlair, you know, and maybe if we think in the Christmas spirit, something else can come out of this between us all. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody.